I'll be 70 years old in a few weeks, and I don't think I have ever seen our country faced with so many threats, both external and internal. And that's what I want to talk about today because we're in dangerous times. You all need to be ready for it. Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. For those of you who are new to us, a special welcome to you. We keep having more and more people joining both the YouTube channel and the Patreon channel. It's great to have you. If you have joined us on the Patreon channel, make sure that you check and regularly check the member posts area. There is a wealth of information and knowledge there posted by our very, very smart patrons and members over there, and you will get a lot out of it. That's in addition to the stuff that I put up on Patreon that I don't put up on YouTube. Did you all see? And maybe I should preface it with this. As I said, I'll be 70 soon. And I grew up in the 50s and the 60s. I saw Khrushchev banging his shoe on the desk. If you don't know what that's about, you're younger than I am, but you can find it. Screaming, "We will bury you," and our news playing that, although trying to, get us to all put bomb shelters in our yards. And we hid under our desks at schools thinking that that would save us from the nukes. And so that's what I grew up in. I lived through the race riots of 1968, Vietnam, where people started to suspect that their country was not always doing what was right. As a result of Vietnam and Richard Nixon, more and more U.S. citizens started to doubt their government, have less faith, and realize that the government was all often lying to us about things. We went through, after that, the misery of Jimmy Carter, who destroyed the economy and the military. We saw a brief respite during Ronald Reagan, where patriotism started to come back, and he rebuilt the military. And then we had the globalist George Bush, who took us into the first Gulf War, which was all about oil. But of course, everybody was made to think that it was about something else. After him, who did we have? We had Clinton, who again destroyed the military and sent the military around the world doing things, many of which they were ill prepared to do and not supposed to do. After him, we had George W., who took us into the big GWAT, right? And of course, we had to have 9/11 stir the American patriotic spirit so that everybody would jump on board, and many did. And George Bush took us through that. Boy, who did we have after him? Gee, many Christians. Then we go through Obama, who again went around the world apologizing for America, weakening us in the eyes of the world, destroying our military again. And then we had another respite with Donald Trump, who actually tried to get things done and had no idea what he was fighting against. And now we've got this buffoon, who again has put us probably in the most dangerous situation our country has ever been in. Did you all watch? We know everything that's going around the world, right? We know everything that's going on in Israel and Gaza and Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran's backing and all this, and they're making all these moves, some subtle, some not so subtle, and people have a tendency to jump on the latest indicator, like, oh, I think maybe Hezbollah is backing off a little bit. That gives us great hope. That means you don't understand how these people work. So we understand everything that's going on over there, but let's take a look at what's going on in our own country. Okay, if you haven't seen the riots in Washington, D.C., the capital of our country, this Saturday. Matter of fact, Mike Hoskins over on the Patreon channel posted on the member posts page videos of that riot. People will say, well, it was a demonstration. Yeah, just like the George Floyd demonstrations were mostly peaceful. It doesn't matter that they burned, cities down. It was mostly peaceful. And after all, didn't they have some sincere grievances? The answer to which is absolutely not. They did not. It was simply an excuse for people raised wrong to engage in their aberrant behavior and get new sneakers and stereo sets while burning down the country, while our law enforcement, did nothing about it. So now we have this Palestinian, pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas. Don't think the two are different. We're going to have some people come on here and say, well, not all Palestinians are Hamas and all this. Hey, this was a as are almost all of the demonstrations throughout our country. They are pro-Hamas wrapped in pro-Palestinian garment. Okay? It is the wolf in the sheep's clothing. The attacker wrapped in the victim's clothing. Make no mistake about that. That's what this is. And whether you've seen it or you want to go and look at the post that Mike put up over there, you'll see the riots, the beginning, the great demonstration, right? 300,000, something like that. 300,000 people came to our nation's capital. And when they got there, they marched through the streets, they stopped traffic, they defaced our national monuments, they hung Palestinian flags all over the place, they made an incursion into our capital. They tried to get into the White House. Here again. Now you have to look at this through the proper lens. Did they really try to get into the White House? Not exactly. But that's not what the kind of stuff that I cover here. I'm going to do that on Patreon. I happen to have some experience in these kinds of things and how these things work, why they work the way they do, and such as that. But anyway, they brought make no mistake, this isn't the initial attack. The initial attack happened some time ago. This is the latest large attack against our country. Now, it could have been stopped. Law enforcement could have stopped it. And there will be people who say, oh, no. There are 300,000 people. There's nothing you can do. There's not enough law enforcement in D.C. to stop this. Yes, there is. Yes, there is, and it can be stopped. There is plenty of law enforcement in D.C. They knew this was coming. They could have had people there in time, just like that so-called, J6 thing. They could have stopped it. Law enforcement is supposed to do more than simply wait until something let me put that. Law enforcement can't be proactive. They can't stop people before the person has done something. Okay, but when they do something, then they can take care of it. So the very first person that gets up with a spray can or a Palestinian flag and starts to deface a national monument, law enforcement can grab that sucker and put him in a wagon and take him to jail. Oh, but there's too many. Hey, there's plenty of cops, there's plenty of wagons, there's plenty of jails. We can stick them in there. If there's not enough room, we'll put them in a warehouse somewhere, okay? There is a reason that they don't stop these things. And I'm going to talk about that reason. When I get done with this, I'm going to make another one for Patreon. I'm going to tell you why they don't stop it. Okay. Now, there will be some that say, you just want to pull us over onto Patreon. Yes, I do, because there's so much more over there. But that's not why I reserve some things to Patreon. I reserve some things to Patreon because they are of a more sensitive nature, or a more, let me just say that fewer people would understand it. And the audience on Patreon is simply a different audience that is on YouTube. And my purpose when I make videos is to instruct, not to get all sorts of arguing going so that there's more hits and more comments and more thumbs ups, downs, whatever, and to increase my numbers. That is not at all my point. I don't do this for a living. But if I do it, the reason you see commercials on it, if I do it, I'm going to make YouTube pay me the money they're going to get for putting ads on here anyway. Okay, so that's why I do it. So I'm going to explain that over there. There are reasons that our law enforcement doesn't stop this stuff. One of them is, and I won't. Well, no, I'm not even going to talk about that. I'll wait for that. But these things, what's important in this is that, as I said at the beginning, I have never seen our country faced with so many threats. Okay, we face threats worldwide, many of our own making. And I know there will be patriots who say, no, we always do everything right. We always do everything good. It's always the other guy. It's always the bad guy. No, it's not. No, it's not. Now, that doesn't mean that I at all side with those against whom we fight, because they are bad guys. But I'll tell you what, half of the stuff that we deal with out there is because of what we have done. Okay. The government does that so that the government will be able to increase its power and then, try to exercise its perceived ownership of its citizens through, conscription, draft. We start a war. It covers the bad economy. It improves the economy. Now they're going to come after your sons and daughters and grandsons and granddaughters. Okay, it's all a part of the power, all part of the power play. Okay, and it's all part of the politics up there. That's why Washington warned against the creation of political parties. It's why Eisenhower warned against the development of the military-industrial complex. And boy, if if he could see what's happening now, I mean, it's just amazing. He was right, and he's still right. Sadly, it's too late. Here's the thing. There are more threats facing us than I think ever before. There's not a lot you can do about the threats facing us worldwide, except to position yourself to be able to withstand the flashback, the blowback of what might come here as a result. And that means you separate yourself from the system. Okay? Separate yourself from the system. Now, I don't necessarily mean, when I say that, geographically. Okay? I am not one who promotes moving to the woods or anything. Not that there's anything wrong with that. If that's your deal, great, man. I can well understand it. I always enjoyed my time in the woods. So, and I love it when we go to our cabin. What I mean is separate yourself from the system. Separate yourself from having to depend on the system. Okay, physically, economically, whatever. You've heard me say this. If you've been with me for a while, you've heard me say that the whole concept of integrative preparedness is not just preparing for the end, but enabling you to improve the quality of your life now by becoming independent of all those external interrelated systems over which you have little to no control. Okay, the electricity goes out, shouldn't be a problem for you. The gas goes out, shouldn't be a problem for you. So water stops coming, shouldn't be a problem for you. Okay, grocery stores are wiped out, shouldn't be a problem for you. All those things. If you want to know how to do those things, I've got a whole lot of videos back in the past you can go look at that explains that, and I'll probably be talking about it more in the future. Matter of fact, I will, because I think I know what the next video is going to be, and I might touch on those things again. If your bank's closed, shouldn't be a problem because you should have cash on hand. If there is no police service, shouldn't be a problem because you ought to be able to take care of those things. You see, what I'm saying here is that you need to be totally self-sufficient. But Steve, will somebody say, that can't be done. When somebody says that, it means that they can't do it or they won't do it because they have decided they're not going to put in the effort to get to that point. No, it can't be done if you're just at the beginning. It can't be done. It takes time and money and directed effort to get to that point. Okay? You got to make the time, you got to make the money, and you've got to direct your efforts to that end. By the way, I want to throw something in here that's really not, well, it's kind of a part of it. I just wanted to warn some people out there, if you're not familiar, and you might be with it. When I said, I made reference to something a minute ago that made me think of something else. I've seen that there are directed attacks by pro-Hamas people here in our country against people who identify as Black Hebrew Israelites. Okay? Now, I'm not exactly sure. I've read a little bit about it, but I can't speak authoritatively on the beliefs of the Black Hebrew Israelites. Now, I know that and the reason that I bring this up is that I know that we have viewers here who identify as Hebrew Israelites. I don't know if there's a difference between those two, Black Hebrew Israelites and simply Hebrew Israelites. I'm not really familiar with, to the extent I have a basic understanding, but I haven't delved deep to understand exactly what that entails, because it's not my faith. They share a lot of faith with me, but I'm not sure exactly. Well, anyway, what I want to do is to warn any of you watching. If these attacks are coming, you all be especially careful. Okay? And I don't know whether you're in greater danger than other people because of your beliefs, but simply because of these attacks on the Black Hebrew Israelites, who knows? I don't know, but take care of yourselves. Y'all are good people, and I don't want you to get hurt. So make sure that you are, eyes open and watching the world and being ready to defend yourself if you have to. Let me take a sip, and then we'll bring this to a conclusion. As I said, the world, in my opinion, and in a fairly long life of paying attention, is crazier than I've ever seen it before. And the threats against our country and we as individual citizens of that country are greater now than I believe I've ever seen it before, both internationally and domestically. Increase your preparedness. Be able to live separate from the system. And if you're not quite there yet, keep at it. Keep at it until you feel that you are. And if you are there, and we have members here who are, and many of them on Patreon, they share what they've done to become independent. Keep on. You guys who have reached that level, you know that there's no ending to it. You can always be better. You can always get better. You can always add to your independence. And finally, to the point where you're not just, being able to support yourselves, to defend yourselves, but to help and defend others. And that's what we're talking about. As a reminder, by the way, if you are following the Audible reading over of The Revival, my second book in the Stone Mount series, over on the Patreon channel, I think that we're up to chapter 7 in that. Already did the reversion, all of that, and now we're going through the revival. I'm enjoying reading this. I'll tell you, I thought while I was doing the reversion, that was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but now I'm starting to enjoy it. And so that's over on the Stone Mount level, not the first level, but the Stone Mount level of the Patreon channel. Love to have you over there. And the link is down below. Also, remember that this and all my videos are brought to you by my series, my books. The Stone Mount series, The Reversion, The Revival, The Renewal, An Appeal to Heaven, The Blessings of Freedom, and Hostages to Fortune. And they are the complete plan of how to be totally self-sufficient and independent. I say it's the complete plan to prepare for, survive, and rebuild after a total collapse of everything. Those are available on Amazon or through our website. Link down below. We've been having some delays in shipping. Sorry about that. We run out of books all the time, but we're catching up, and we'll get to them. You'll get them faster from Amazon, but you'll get them signed if you get them from me, and I love doing that because I love my relationship with my readers. So just keep this in mind. The threats are increasing. You are the one who's responsible for, maintaining your safety and security and ongoing well-being. So keep at it, and help others to do it too. I have a little story about a neighbor I just talked to last night that maybe I'll talk about probably over on Patreon that kind of illustrates this. So anyway, remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, and get out there and do something today. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.